When initially designing the course, I was asked to schedule an optional sync session each week. I perceived this to be a sort of virtual drop-in centre for my students to meet with their professor and course mates, just in case they needed help. Much to my surprise, however, this weekly optional sync session became our community water cooler. Rather than an afterthought, it became the place to be seen and heard for our virtual community. We had nearly 100% attendance for each weekly sync session throughout the entire course, including one session when attendees were logged in from Florida, Connecticut, Illinois, and Queensland, Australia simultaneously. I began each session with a general well-being check. While in the early weeks these check-ins were mostly course-related, by the third and fourth week we began to hear more about important life events outside of class, such as one student who described to the rest of us real challenges she was having in her workplace, and another whose town was hit by violent storms that knocked out the electricity for several days. During each event, students reached out to each other both individually and through our community chat sessions, offering comfort and assistance. Rather than detract from the coursework, this seemed to strengthen our community and the collaborative thought that was going into group projects and discussion boards. How this came about was quite accidental, but worth briefly sharing for other online community builders. During the course design process, my learning designer, Jessica Mansbach, suggested I add a page to the end of each weekly module called What Happened This Week? I agreed to include this page, but wanting to ensure students had a place where they could ask questions, I also created an Ask the Instructor discussion board. During the first week of class, several students posted questions about the coursework to me in a variety of places, including the announcements board, the Ask the Instructor board, and via Canvas direct message. This seemed highly inefficient to me, and so I suggested to the class that they post questions and topics for review and clarification in the What Happened This Week page, and that the content there, including my own notes, would become the agenda for our weekly sync session. This seemed to not only suit everyone as a central location, but it gave students a sense of control over the weekly sync session discussions, something they respected and valued. Being vested in the creation of weekly sync session discussion topics not only encouraged participation and collegiality among students, it also modeled a core tenet of the course, which was learner-centered teaching. I offered students an opportunity to lead discussions during some of these weekly sync sessions, and they could see how their own areas of interest guided the course discussions and even group assignments. For example, during one sync session, students described multimedia tools they had used for presentations in other courses. One student demonstrated the timeline software for digital storytelling developed at Northwestern's own Night Lab. We were all impressed with the demonstration and the tool, and it became an optional tool to be used for digital stories within the students' own case studies. Mostly, this became a time when students could question me about assignment requirements and help refine their case studies to be used in group projects for the course. So together, we created course content while spontaneously responding to specific student needs and interests.